Hey mamas, welcome back to Mamas Building Businesses for part three in our mini series about work-life balance. And I have the amazing Venus here again with me today. Venus, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Erica, for having me again. This is exciting. Part three.
Yes, yes. So today we're going to talk about, we're going to kind of wrap up the whole life balance and really talk about how creating work-life balance gives you a more fulfilled life, right? So we already talked about how it improves you yourself, how it improves the people around you, and that all really snowballs into giving you a more fulfilled life. So the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that when you have that balance and you're in harmony and you're in the right headspace where you're being efficient and you're being you're high performing. um, it just allows you to really pour into other people in a way different way, like a way more value added way. Um, V, you and I have talked about this a lot, just like when you show up, this happens in friendships all the time. When you show up and you're in a good headspace, like you're really able to pour into the people around you.
I think it's important. We're consistently moving. When you're a high level leader, especially as a woman, we talked about this before, and you have so many things on your plate, pouring into other people, especially the ones that you love, it's huge. But the only way you can do that is through this. I love quality time. How can I unplug and, just be there for someone else because I have a child who loves quality time too. So how can I pour into him with doing that? So, in what we covered in the two episodes, is really the way to be able to give that to them. But showing up and, like you said, realigning ourselves is huge when it comes to that. So,
It is huge. And I think the power in being able to pour into people in such a great way, whether it's our kids, whether it's people we work with, whether even strangers on the street, like we talked about, when you have good energy, you have the ability to walk into a room and shift the energy in the room. When you feel good about what you are giving, you feel more fulfilled. Like, especially as moms. Think of like Christmas time. You get more joy and excitement out of the gifts you give your kids and seeing like how happy they are and the excitement than when you receive gifts. And we're just wired that way. Like the more you give, the happier you are. And so when you're able to pour into people effectively, it gives you a happier, more fulfilled feeling. Does that make sense?
it does make sense, and fulfillment really is. It's an individual perspective, though, too. The way I view or the way I desire a fulfilled life and how I look at that may be different than the way you do. I love holidays. I'll touch on that. I love holidays. Do I work through them sometimes? I do, but being able to balance that out, and like you said, realign. I'm only able to be present and be able to give my family, decorate my home, do the thing, cook, do the things I love to do by having that. That's a fulfillment for me. So it's really, what does a fulfilled life look like for you?
Yes, I love that. I love that. And, taking that a step further, when we're talking about both in our home and out of our home, the ripple effect of showing up as your best self, right? So, work-life balance helps you create the best version of yourself, where you're able to leave work at work, home at home, you're able to get your mind right. And that really creates a ripple effect. It creates a ripple effect in our children because the way we treat them is how they treat others. It creates a ripple effect in the people we pour into in our businesses. It creates a ripple effect like with strangers on the street when you go to the market and you're asking somebody how their day is because you're happy and you're in a good mood. It just creates a positive ripple, right? And
Yeah.
our world needs all the positive ripples it can get.
Oh yeah, you hit the nail right on the head there because when we think about what we're doing, we really need to scale back and say, why are we doing this, right? what do we want? We want to prosper. We want to have a future that is filled with contentment and deep connections. And, this allows us to do that, a fulfilled life for me personally, because as we talked about earlier, there's ebb and flows, like we stated. We talked about that a little bit, and so I have my highs and lows, but that ripple effect with this really assists. It really helps to be able to connect on just a deeper level, especially with the people around me. And that's important. It's important for them to feel that. It's important for me to feel that. At the end of the day, I want to, lay my head down and say, this was a great day. This was a great day. Or at the end of that season, or at the end of that event, or the end of whatever it is we have as a family going on, or in our business, and we're able to celebrate even those small wins, which is really, really, it's vital. It really is.
Yeah, it really is. And I love that you said connection because that was one of the other things that I was thinking about when we were discussing that this would be our third episode, this topic, because when you're showing up as your best self, you create different, deeper, and better connections. So I'll sort of elaborate why I used all three of those, adjectives is because one, when you feel your best, you're more apt to be social and network with people. And we have all heard your network is your net worth, right? And just the real benefit of connecting with people. And I personally believe that we were created for connection. We were meant to connect with people. And then when I say better and deeper, it's that like having positive interactions with people and deeper because the better you feel, the more confident you feel, the more or the less, I should say, the less stressed you feel, the more apt you are to open up and share with others. And I'm not talking necessarily from like a super vulnerable perspective, but what I'm saying is it is very easy when you communicate and connect with others and you're both just kind of have like this open heart of like, this is who I am and these are the things that I do, for somebody to see your strengths. And what that creates in the real world is it creates more opportunity. The more people that can see your energy, your skills, the ways that you can be a blessing, the more opportunity that's going to present itself, the more times that they're going to invite you on a podcast, the more times that they're going to share your business with somebody. And so I really believe that all of this circles back to creating better connections, which in turn equal having better opportunities.
I love that you said that as well, because I had an opportunity yesterday and I was bombarded with a lot of different things. From a production standpoint, from performance, getting teams trained up, just there were a lot of, and I won't go into the industry jargon of that. But what I will say is, I had a lady come up to me yesterday, and my mind is on getting things done, efficiency. How are we gonna get from point A to point B, and yesterday I particularly had a situation with a lady who came up to me, and she was completely in tears, completely in tears. And there was a situation that arose and she felt some kind of way, but she was going through something in her personal life. With my work brain, I would have been like, hey, let's see how we can fix this. And I would have probably taken a few minutes and connect with her on a very superficial level. But I took the time to be able to do that. And so when I show up as my best self, I'm able to do that for other people. I'm able to connect with them. Within 20 minutes, this lady had calmed down. She felt that she was encouraged enough to be able to stay at work, to be able to do what she needed to do, because she didn't want to leave. She didn't. She was telling me the things that she needed and that she wanted, but having that deeper connection it's huge. The only way I'm able to be able to foster that or to assist, whatever word we want to use in that capacity, was because I was able to check myself already throughout the day that, hey, I have the capability of doing this because I'm going to show up today as this person. And that was fulfilling for that lady. It was fulfilling. We were laughing by the end of the night. So she started from crying, and now to laughing. So that's just a brief example of how we're able to, pour into people. We're able to have a ripple effect with how we come across, to people when we are doing that work life balance, and how it allows us to be able to fulfill not just ourselves, but to others. So it made me happy that I was able to do something for her on a personal level, that she left work not crying, So
I love that so much because I actually had posted on social media yesterday about how I heard Myron Golden say something where he basically said we allow our blessings to be quieted because we're afraid of people judging us rather than what about the people who those things would bless if we weren't worried about judgment. It
right,
wasn't exactly in those words, but you get the point. And I posted it because the reason why it really, really hit me is I think that so many times, especially like we all fall into like imposter syndrome and insecurities and those things. But when you're constantly doing the work on yourself, it builds your self esteem, it builds your confidence, it builds your believability. And the more confident you are when you get that like intuition of like, oh, I should say this, or I should share this, or I should, that person who's upset, I should spend a little more time with them. When you do that, you really don't have any idea the impact that can have on somebody. Like that situation that you had last night, that woman will probably remember that years down the road. I
oh
had
yeah,
something similar recently where I had a conversation with a woman about 3 years ago. And it was like we hit it off. We were talking about business. She had told me a business idea. I shared with her like how she could bring it into fruition, like just in my own experience in business. Fast forward, she reached out to me and said, "Hey, I started my business because of that conversation we had." And I had no like I had no clue that that one conversation had such an impact on her, right? And I think that it's so important that when we get those like whispers or those like, oh, I should talk to this person or maybe it's I should share this on social media. Don't worry about the judgment. Don't let the insecurities hold you back because it could be such a blessing for somebody else. It could really be such a blessing for somebody
it
else.
is an opportunity. It really truly is an opportunity for you to connect with that person because something that you have, they may need.
Hmm.
They may need, and they may not say it at the time. They may come 3 months down the road. You're introducing, something that you have that can bless their life at some point. Women, we overthink. We overthink about a lot of different things, but when we think about, how we talked about impact in the last episode. But when we think about that and we are able to have those opportunities when someone comes to us, okay, how are we showing up for this? But more so, how are we pouring into this? More so, how does it satisfy us? I think of satisfaction at the end of the day too. Are we able to give somebody something that's, ultimately is going to put them in a place where they can have a fulfilled life?
Yeah.
So not only are we, wanting to be the best versions of ourselves and live a fulfilled life, we want to be able to give that gift of how we've been able to do that to someone else that we encounter that day, that month, that week, that weekend, whatever that event is. You never know. You never know what the opportunities in front of you. And you mentioned imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome, it is, yes, it is it is do or die. And you got to push past it. You really have to be able to replace those thoughts. You have to with the good things, with the good thoughts to say, hey, I can do it. I've been able to do this. And I want to have this fulfilled life for myself. I want to have this for other people that I come encounter with too. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And all of this circles back to having a fulfilled life for yourself. I mean, you said
it
it at the
does.
end because
It does.
when you have an impact on somebody, it fills your cup. Like there's nothing better when you can be proud of somebody because you've made that connection. And so just across the board, and like, as a mom, when you hear, like, recently I had somebody from my son's school say, you have done such an incredible job. He is such a respectful young man, and he's 16 years old. Like, to hear that about your teacher, it's so fulfilling. And I know that my children are thriving because of the work that I have done. It's because they're amazing, but it is also because of the work I've done on myself, so that the way that I'm pouring into them has that ripple effect, right? So, yeah, it's incredible
So,
just all around.
so remember I mentioned before, I like to have the end in mind. This is
Yeah.
the end in mind when I start. So all the pieces in between, we figure out. We have to develop certain areas of ourselves. We figure out, and I wanted to read something because a fulfilled life means experience deep satisfaction and contentment, driven by a sense of purpose, the use of one's talents, and a feeling of being fully alive. So at the end of the day, we want to feel that way and we want others to feel that way because that's why we've been given the capability to do what we do as entrepreneurs, as, leaders, in whatever capacity that we're in, homes, work, whatever capacity that is.
I love that so much. Thank you for reading that. And I don't really think there's a better note to end on. So we will end there. We appreciate you guys for tuning in, and we look forward to creating more episodes. Thanks, V.
Yes, thank you so much.